Welcome to another episode of Follow the Brand. I am your host, Grant McGaw, CEO of 5-Star BDM, a 5-star personal branding and business development company. I want to take you on a journey that takes another deep dive into the world of personal branding and business development using compelling personal stories, business conversations, and tips to improve your personal brand. By listening to the Follow the Brand podcast series, you will be able to differentiate yourself from the competition and allow you to build trust with prospective clients and employers. You never get a second chance to make a first impression. Make it one that will set you apart, build trust, and reflect who you are. Developing your 5-star personal brand is a great way to demonstrate your skills and knowledge. If you have any questions for me or my guests, please email me at grant.mcgaugh, spelled M-C-G-A-U-G-H, at 5-star BDM, B for brand, D for development, M for masters.com. Now let's begin with our next 5-star episode on Follow the Brand. Welcome to the Follow the Brand podcast, where we help you to build a 5-star brand that people will follow. I am your host, Grant McGaugh, CEO of 5-Star BDM, and today we have a truly exceptional guest with us, Franchella Jennett, a seasoned healthcare executive who brings a wealth of knowledge and experience to the table. Have you ever wondered how technology is shaping the landscape of healthcare and personal growth? Well, if you're like me, you are in for a treat today as we embark on a riveting journey with Franchella. She's here to paint a vivid picture of the evolving synergy between healthcare, technology, and personal development. Franchella's extensive background in the healthcare sector positions her as a true trailblazer in this field of digital technology and healthcare execution. She's not only going to share her remarkable journey, but also shed light on the transformative power of personal branding within healthcare. In the second part of our conversation, we will dive into the intriguing role of artificial intelligence and data scientists in enhancing our understanding of patient data. We'll discuss the potential of value-based care models and how they're revolutionizing patient outcomes. And we will explore the critical importance of involving the right stakeholders in digital health projects. Franchella will highlight the value of risk-taking and idea testing in this ever-evolving landscape. We will also tackle the challenge of engaging millennials and Gen Z in healthcare. With their unique perspectives on health and technology, this generation presents both challenges and opportunities. And we'll uncover how technology can bridge this gap. This episode is a deep dive into Franchella's expertise, providing you with enlightening insights into the ever-evolving world of healthcare and technology. So, let's get started on this insightful journey with Franchella Jennett on the Follow Brand podcast, where we are building a 5-star brand that you can follow. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Follow Brand podcast. I'm your host, Grant McGaugh, and every now and then I get to go to Texas. Everything's big in Texas. That's what they told me. They got big stars, they got big people. Everybody is larger than life. Well, I tell you, I ran into Franchella Jennett, and I'm telling you, man, I met her. She was referred to me by a great person, and I have been nothing short of impressed with everything she has done. And she has agreed to come on to the podcast today and talk about her journey, talk about what things are important for her. And we're going to get a better insight into her own personal brand. Franchella, you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much, Grant. Thank you for having me. Franchella Jennett, I am a seasoned, I like to say, healthcare executive very much interested in the digital health world, but more so from a population health value-based care perspective. I've been working in that space for over 15 years. And I enjoy helping connect providers and ultimately patients with better health outcomes and getting providers to think differently about their payment models. My background is in large health systems, working in clinically integrated networks and managing those. But where I found my foundation and I pull from, my purpose and strength is with federally qualified health centers and community providers that are really the boots on the ground, helping improve care and helping drive those better outcomes for patients and the communities that they live and work in.
Well, let's unpack that just a little bit, because this is interesting. We want to get to a little bit about your journey, your background in healthcare, because it's definitely pretty broad in what you've done. But everybody has what we call that pivotal moment in their life as you think through it. That moment that you chose healthcare as a career, or maybe healthcare chose you as a career. What was that moment like for you?
I do like to think that healthcare chose me, but it was a mutual love. My mother was a nurse, so I was born into healthcare, and she worked for the Veterans Administration doing long-term care. So I got to witness firsthand our country's soldiers kind of in the latter part of their life or in some kind of long-term care support system, and just how valued they were by the nursing staff, including my mom. But I was always kind of questioning, like, who's in charge here besides you, Mom? Who's in charge? And there was always like some doctor or director that was referenced. And I always thought, I want to be that person. But I think the kind of pivotal moment for me in terms of just being more of an administrator in healthcare and what really connected the personal purpose for me was working in a volunteer clinic in college and recognizing that our providers were so frustrated by all the social concerns related to patients like not coming in, missing their appointments, having substance abuse concerns, like just things beyond what they could really address or get to the root of their issues and managing their concerns. I felt like I really need to help our providers out in a way that it's not just through providing care for patients, it's through changing the systems around them and helping build infrastructure that can better support patients or patients in the care continuum, so that when a patient presents in an office or has that virtual connect, that they have more than just that doctor's visit to support them. So I think that's what kind of really charged me with participation in healthcare, and the connection to value-based care was, again, that infrastructure that ultimately is trying to help providers provide care, do what they went to school to do, and helping patients get better and live healthier lives.
Well, let's unpack that even more, because I like how you talked about the system and the delivery of care, especially from an administrative standpoint, and how we can do that through now technology has gotten better. You've probably seen some of these changes that take place. Are you, and this is something that I hear a lot about, that healthcare executives or just providers, some of them are gung-ho about utilizing new technology. Some are not. Some are middle of the road. They're not really sure. I think COVID kind of definitely accelerated a lot of things from a telehealth perspective. I want to get your take on things.
Yeah, we're definitely in an exciting time. I think everybody says that because healthcare is always changing. But from a digital perspective and a technological adoption standpoint, there's a lot of movement in healthcare. I think there was a lot of recognition during the pandemic that there were a lot of different avenues that could be served and addressed with technology. And so there were probably already a lot of different innovations in the pipeline, but the adoption of them, the interest in them just kicked up exponentially because we needed new ways to deliver care. The things that I think as a healthcare professional, I've been waiting on that kind of move beyond the walls of traditional healthcare. And so the acceleration of telemedicine visits and different home devices that could be used to relay health information to providers is really pivotal in the pandemic. And even more so now, just how we're connecting patients to care beyond the care they get with the provider, helping them be more accountable. There's so much technology out there, and I think it's fantastic. But ultimately, I will say my take on it is all these tools can be developed. Health systems and providers can say, here, patient, take this. I want you to use this. None of that really matters if people don't connect to those things or if they don't have a personal interest to take care of themselves, to want to be well, to prioritize their health. And so that's kind of my next iteration. Like, how do we leverage digital communications or other digital tools, these algorithms that you and I have talked about, Grant, that influence, what materials and content we see in the internet, that inspire and also motivate people to get involved in their care, to do something, to see their doctor, to address that reduction in vision that they may be experiencing, or just to get their blood sugar checked on a regular basis, all types of things. So that's kind of the area of digital health I think I'm interested in, driving more patient connection to get interested in the tools and resources that we have available in the current infrastructure.
No, that's noble, and it has to be done because of the access to healthcare. And you only have so many workers, so many providers can only get to so many people. And I think we're at a point now in our culture, or at least our country, that we got a lot of elderly population out there. They're going to need more and more care. How are we going to deliver that care is so important. So we've got to start adopting, getting used to this new technology. And I think people did get used to some things on telehealth, and they started to realize these are things that are good for telehealth and these are things that are not so good. So you begin to understand where you can utilize the technology to get better adoption. And I like what you said about conveying information and to give them certain alerts to let them know, hey, it's time for your physical. Hey, it's time to go ahead and engage. Hey, have you checked your weight? Have you checked, certain vitals that are necessary? And you can do this now with remote patient monitoring tools that they have. There's so many different ways, but we have to adopt it and engage. I want you to help the audience understand what is a federally qualified health centers and what do you do? How do you help them to be more of a caregiver?
Sure. Federally qualified health centers, FQHCs, also known as community health centers, are organizations very much based and grown out of communities that are generally federally funded and supported to provide care for everyone, anyone who needs it. They're mission driven. And also obligated by their grant funding to provide care, whether you have insurance or no insurance. And typically, the FQHCs are primary care focused, but some of them also have specialty care baked in, as well as behavioral health, dental, vision. They're really kind of a one-stop shop health service organization. And that's what makes them so fantastic. Again, they're usually very mission oriented and mission driven. So they hold a very unique space in the healthcare provider scape. And why they're important to me, I mentioned earlier, I started my career with a federally qualified health center working on the west side of Chicago. And it really gave me the opportunity to see, like, boots on the ground, really getting into things like there are community health workers that engage patients, and they were doing this way before large health systems and others are doing it. They were trying to utilize different types of providers, say for counseling services, and those things might not have been billable, but it was the right thing to do. And so what I do now with federally qualified health centers is try to help them think about different models for their payment for doing some of these services, this different type of care that they've been doing for years. So I tell them, like, think about the services or the things you do today that you don't get paid for. How can we build a model of care around that where we could get reimbursed for it, or that everything was, regardless of the payment, it's all about the outcome for the patient. What would you do to service the patient better, special, or different? So that is the world I'm living in right now. I'm building a clinically integrated network with federally qualified health centers that they are driving and leading the governance of. And it's very exciting to see them work collaboratively as opposed to just separately, as I know they're doing their very specific work in their own communities. It's about leveraging the power of the collective effort to do these alternative payment models with insurance companies.
Do you feel that there's a gap in the infrastructure between all the different entities that you're working with, that possibly some kind of technology or software development could help? And can you cite any specific opportunity, or could you reimagine what that healthcare delivery could look like? This episode is brought to you by 5-Star BDM. 5-Star BDM is a professional consulting and advisory group keenly focused on business development services for small to mid-sized businesses and entrepreneurs. Although every business is unique, they often share challenges that can be addressed through smart branding. Services include process improvement and operations, digital strategy and transformation, business intelligence, digital marketing, and personal branding. Our 5-Star business and personal branding company has helped a number of professionals and organizations to optimize and grow. The result is more business, more opportunities, better reach, positive outcomes. Please visit www.5starbdm.com to learn more and view all the episodes of Follow the Brand.
Yeah, so first and foremost, the data, and I know people say this all the time, but like the data is the part that really brings all of the entities together, from the payer to the provider to the patient, right? All the data is coming from different sources, different inputs, and you need a strong aggregator and analyzer that can really give you a story about the patient, the financial performance, and then it kind of predicts or projects like where you go from there, what kind of models you can build based off of current utilization, current financial outcomes, and health outcomes. So without that, you can't really do very much anything related to any other digital or technology-based solutions, in my opinion. But I do see there's a critical role when you talk about providers working together as a network, something where they're utilizing either more electronic provider-based technology or telehealth. I love platforms that allow people to kind of self-care or self-monitor in the home, but also where that instruction can come from that tool. It doesn't necessarily have to come from a provider. The provider gets the information about that patient's self-care, self-monitoring, but there's AI or technology that can instruct the patient based on what is being recognized in the moment about what needs to happen. So when we were talking about earlier, like, those triggers, like, you need to do this, patient, or have you thought about going to get your eyes checked or calling your doctor about this? Like, that's the type of technology I think would play a very critical role in health centers or anybody really working together as more of like a virtual network that's set out to improve patient outcomes. So I would love to help get that type of technology into our network and deploy it across our centers so that patients, wherever they are, can start to self-manage and learn from the technology that they have or possess and have access to, where our providers can monitor them from a distance.
I tell you, your input is so important for, especially a person like myself, who've been in technology for 20, 25 years, understanding we need, as the technologists, we need to understand the current state, where the gaps lie, and what the challenges are, what are the friction points, so that when we collaborate together, we can give you a tool that really works for you. So you don't have to bend toward the tool and change how your workflow is going. No, it should be a natural, glove to your hand to make things work better. What you're going to probably see in the next year to 2 to 3 years, more AI engineering, artificial intelligence engineering into the fabric of a lot of these networks. And then you also have access to data scientists. But I would tell them all, the database, they need to understand what they're looking at from a person like yourself. Like, what does this actually mean? And all those triggers you just talked about, we're talking about the financial triggers, the operational, triggers, and then obviously the patient outcomes and the patient experience. Those are things that technologists can't do just by themselves, and they need input from people like yourself that understand it, who've grown up with it and know it very intimately. They know what will actually make an impact instead of just trying to force something down the road. And I think that's important. You also work a lot with value-based care modeling, and that's newer now because it's a fee-for-service that's taking place. You see some people, they play with it. Maybe it's more two-dimensional, but they haven't gone deep into it. I've seen some clinics, especially like here in Florida, they do that. They do decapitated rates and things of that nature. And it's an at-risk model, but it is risky. How have you found value in value-based care in your particular role?
So I can speak to this from kind of roles prior and also currently where I am. Value-based care is definitely, again, taking the focus off of the payment. There are incentives, right? I think that's how you really get provider buy-in and participation in value-based care, but it takes the focus off of the payment and focuses on the patient and what the patient needs and what specifically needs to be measured in order to say, provider, you're doing a great job. I think it also has been focused on putting data in front of providers, so making care more transparent, more objective, and of course, the patient's actual outcomes are highly visible and the priority. So I think that's one piece of value that has really come out of value-based care. The other piece, I think, is bringing providers together in a way that helps also merge like patient information, patient data. So when we were talking about some gaps, obviously the disparate systems that we utilize to collect and monitor patients is a problem. Everybody's on a different EMR. Everybody has, some people are still on paper, God forbid, but they are. And so there's no way to really strongly aggregate that data. While we have some EMRs that, are doing more interfacing and there's more adoption of specific brands of EMRs, there's still a disconnect there. So working together in like accountable care organizations has called for the aggregation of data. CMS is giving out data in large batches for other entities to analyze and help build a story and tell a story around patient and their outcomes, their utilization. So I think that's another real valuable piece. I will say in kind of wrapping up this, there's been a lot of movement in value-based care and alternative payment models, and it hasn't really produced there's been a lot of savings, so I don't want to discount that, but it hasn't, I think, produced or accelerated the change in healthcare that we really want to see. So I think there's still a lot of untapped potential in value-based care that we can get out of it. So there's definitely a long road. And to bring it back to just digital health, I think that's the next iteration. How do we leverage the technology that actually integrates more with patients, not just the solutions that help provide care, but the engagement in their care?
Very fascinating. And I love your insights because it's not a solved problem. It's not an easy solution to get into, but it's something that we need to track toward as we go forward in our healthcare, especially in the U.S. I know that we both belong to a similar organization. I would say the same organization. That's the NAHSE, right? Healthcare executive. They just had their conference in Atlanta, and I want you to just give me your take. Like, what did you get out of that conference? How does that really play in what you're doing and the value that you see in working with the organization?
Yeah, I've been a long time standing member of NAHSE since I think I was in grad school or first came out of grad school. And I'm so thrilled that I was able to kind of get back into conference this year, having attended in Atlanta. I'll highlight, in addition just to reconnecting with folks and being able to see so many colleagues across the country that are leading healthcare in so many different ways. One major takeaway for me relates to this conversation was we talked about federally qualified health centers, which I think was a first at NAHSE at the conference. And it was really exposing our professional group to this other sector of healthcare that's, like I said, been established, been doing value-based care, been partnering with hospital systems like for eons, for decades. And I think it's just such an important call out, not just because of the great work that FQACs do and the role that they play in the broader healthcare landscape, but it's also a career route, a very mission-driven oriented career path that, maybe young professionals haven't considered or haven't been exposed to. So I thought that was fantastic that NAHSE highlighted it, but there were some phenomenal speakers that took the stage, and it's always great also to just see the recognition of young professionals at NAHSE. I have been a mentor in the space. I've judged the case competition in the past, so it's always exciting to see the team that wins, all the scholarships that are given out to support Black graduate students and postgraduates with furthering their education, because that's the name of the game. You gather as much knowledge as you can to be successful in the industry. So big shout out to NAHSE for the role that it played, and another awesome conference year. I'm really excited I was able to take place, and we'll see you in Fort Lauderdale next year.
Oh, you're coming to my hometown. So yeah, I would definitely be there. Can't wait to do it. You are not only a guest, but you are a client of 5-Star BDM, and I applaud you for that. One of the things that we discerned as you worked with me was your personal tagline that you have about pioneering healthcare journeys. I really like that. Can you just give us some understanding or just some context around what you got out of our engagement, and how do you feel that's going to help you moving forward?
Yeah, I think it was phenomenal, like having that time to reflect on my own personal brand and what I could do, what I needed to do, where the opportunity lies. And I think it's also very affirmative to work with someone that can, kind of just show you like you've done a lot, you've done great things. Now it's time for the world to be more engaged and involved in what you have to say, and being receptive to that, being open to sharing. So I think the time spent reflecting and really pushing myself to think about how to tell the story differently, where to communicate that story was really helpful. It's still a work in progress, but dedicating the time to craft those messages, those communications. Again, like I am super interested in utilizing digital health, thinking about which technologies make sense for my network, for, beyond what I'm doing today. And nobody would know that, right? If I'm not telling my story. So I think it's so important to engage with leaders like you, Grant, to help leaders like me develop that story to share with others, not just for my own advancement, but I'm always big on like inspiring others, and I'm certain through our connection that others will find what we discovered together very valuable at some point in their career. I want to point out that like my interest with digital health is all about like trying and testing out different things. I heard somewhere at a conference that 70% of digital transformation projects fail. And so I think it's so important to, again, put the information out there, like what's been tried and tested, but also like where we need help, like where and when we're willing to test things out, because we'll only know by like, implementing and then failing fast and then going to the next thing. And I think, I want that to be a big part of my brand and who I am. And I appreciate you, Grant, for helping me articulate that and recognize the other ways that I can put that out there for folks.
Oh, without question. I learned a lot by working with you, understanding where you're at now and the pivot points you could possibly make going forward. And we need you, friend. I'm talking from my putting on my hat around information technology. We can't do it by ourselves. One of the reasons why 70% of those projects fail is because they don't get the right stakeholders. They don't have the right people in the room giving the right information. And I would tell you the biggest problem is human adoption, because no one wants to adopt something that they don't find value in. And if you haven't included all the different facets of what's necessary in an implementation that's going to change workflow, and remember, you're dealing with patients' lives and their outcomes. That is a very serious thing. So you want to take your time and you want to do it right, but you have to involve all the different stakeholders. I learned a lot of that by working with you. So I really, really appreciate it. I call her the Maverick. She is the Maverick. She's down there in Texas, just holding it down. I really appreciate you being on the show. And if there's anything you like to leave us with, anything that you would like the audience to know, that you feel that's important that we have not talked about, I'm going to give you the mic and let you run with it.
Okay, I'll try not to run too far. One, I recognize that there were a number of people that helped me get to where I am. I definitely couldn't do it without mentors and sponsors, and also just taking risks, taking chances to grow and to glow. And so, again, shout out to you, Grant, for helping in the growing and glowing process, even in a point in my career where I'm leading and developing new innovative networks. There's always space if you're open to continue to advance. So I want to offer that as advice to anyone listening. It's never too late. Never get comfortable with kind of where you are. I read somewhere that like comfort and advancement can't coexist. I think you have to be a little uncomfortable to move to the next level. So, again, a charge to anyone who's feeling comfortable, they've hit their stride. The other piece I wanted to mention is, again, going back to the digital health front. I'm working with providers on the front lines and we know where the challenges lie. I think, again, there's so many innovations out there, and they're wonderful, some really great technologies, but they may not all be getting at the root cause of the problem or the root of the problem. You can solve for a lot of health issues directly, but how do you solve for people who are not connecting, who are not engaged in their care? That's where I think a lot of the provider frustration resonates. So how do we find those patients? How do we engage with them? Another just random statistic, it's like almost 70% of millennials are not likely to use a primary care provider. So thinking beyond, again, the walls of a PCP office, even beyond a telemedicine visit with a primary care provider. And I think the statistics higher or pretty similar for Gen Z. So we definitely have to take it in that direction, even as we are addressing the needs and the technology adoption for our seniors, our silenced population. That's another avenue where technology is very much beneficial, but it's just, there's specific problems we need to be solving for, and working together with those that are on the front lines, I think, is the best way for technology adoption to be successful. So I offer myself out there for anyone who wants to chat about where the real issues are, and if there's new technologies to be vetted in the healthcare space that really function to engage patients where they are based on their needs, it'd be great to reach out.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. And that's a great leeway. So what is the best way to get in contact with Miss Franchella?
Yeah, the best way to connect with me, I have a LinkedIn account. You can find me on LinkedIn, Franchella Jennett. My email is also franchellajennett@gmail.com. If you ever want to connect personally, feel free to reach out. My Twitter or my X profile is coming soon, so you'll be able to find that information on my LinkedIn page as well.
Well, this has been wonderful. Again, I've learned so much. Every time I interact with you, there's always new knowledge, new understanding, new insights that I gain. I really appreciate you being on the show. I want to encourage everyone listening, especially out there in Texas, where everything is really big. I want them to definitely tune in to all the episodes of Follow Brand at 5-Star BDM. That is the number 5, that's star, that's B for brand, D for development, M for masters.com. This has been wonderful. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, Grant.